Hey, how's it going everybody? It's your bro here, yet again, and in this video I'm going to walk you through how you can design your own quiz using Java. Let's get into it. My goal is to create a program that is not necessarily the most sophisticated or advanced, but one that is more or less easiest to understand. If this sounds like something you'd be interested in, then let's get started. It's always a good idea to plan on how you want a program to function before you actually begin coding anything. Otherwise, you may be backtracking if you make any changes halfway through, and there's a lot of potential for something to go wrong or not function as you intended. So it's always good to plan ahead before you actually begin to code anything. This is what I'm planning: a text field for the number question that you're on, a text area for the question itself, 4 buttons that will submit a response A through D respectively, a label for each possible answer, and a timer that will count down from 10, and when it reaches 0, it's going to skip to the next question. After you submit an answer by clicking on one of the buttons, all wrong answers will be colored red, or if the timer reaches 0, all wrong answers will also be colored red, and the correct answer will continue to stay the screen color. Once all questions are complete, it's going to tally the results and display what you got for a score. Let's get started. The first thing we'll want to do is to create a new project. If you're using Eclipse as an IDE, just go to File, New, Java Project, and I will call this perhaps Quiz Game. And let's click Finish. Don't create. Alright, then under the quiz game, underneath the source folder, we're going to go to File, New, Class. And I'm going to make a main class, and we'll checkbox this public static void main so we can begin the program here. Alright, I'm going to get rid of this comment, and let's create a new class. So we'll only have 2 classes for this. So we're going to click on the source folder, then go to File, New, Class. And I will call this Quiz. And finish. Alright, all we need to do within main is we're going to type this: quiz equals new quiz, parentheses, semicolon. Alright, now we no longer have to use this main class for anything. We're going to do everything else within the quiz class. Before we get too ahead of ourselves, we need to import a few things. So outside of your quiz class near the top, we're going to import java.awt.event.asterisk. There's a few more. Import java.awt.asterisk, semicolon. And this is the last one. Import javax.swing.asterisk, semicolon. And that's all the imports that we'll need. The best way to handle this next part is to break up our quiz class into different sections. We'll include a constructor and some methods, and we'll fill these things in as we go along. The first thing that we'll need is the constructor. So public quiz, parentheses, and a set of curly brackets. We'll need a method in order to move to the next question. So public void next question. Whenever we want to move to the next question, we just call this method and do whatever is within this method. Now we'll need an action listener to handle button clicking events. So we need to implement an interface. Implements action listener. So this is going to yell at us because we need to add unimplemented methods. So if you don't get that notice, you can just type this in too. Public void action performed. Anything related to button clicking is going to go within this action performed method. We'll want to include a method to display the correct answer. So public void display answer, parentheses, set of curly brackets. And lastly, we want a method to display the final results. So public void results, parentheses, and a set of curly brackets. We'll be filling in these methods as we go along. So these are all the methods that we'll need. We'll need a constructor for the quiz, a method for next question, a method for action performed, a method for display answer, and a method for the results. So there should be a total of 5 methods. Okay, well, step one is complete. We now have the framework or skeleton of our program, and we're going to start filling things in. We're going to be initializing and declaring a few things within the quiz class, but before the constructor, the first thing that we're going to add is an array of strings that will hold all of the questions that we want to ask. So this will be of the string data type. It's going to be an array, so we need the straight brackets, and let's call this questions, equals, then a set of curly brackets, then add a semicolon at the end. And I'm going to line these up because it bothers me if they're not lined up. And we can start asking some questions. Just put them within double quotes. So pick whatever questions you want to ask within here. I have a few picked out for myself. Which company created Java? And then separate each question that you want to ask with a comma, and then you can ask another. Which year was Java created? And then I'll ask one more. There's not really a limit to how many you can ask. This is going to be a dynamic program, so it's going to adjust based on how many questions you want to ask. And I'll ask one more. We'll keep it simple at 3. What was Java originally called? All right, and then on the last question, you don't need to add a comma. So these are all the questions we're going to ask. We're going to store them within an array of strings. The next thing that we'll need is a 2D array of strings to hold all the different possibilities for answers for every question that we have. So this is going to be of the string data type, and we need 2 sets of straight brackets because it's a 2D array. And let's call this options. These are all the different options for answers. Equals, and then a set of curly brackets, and then add a semicolon at the end. I'm going to line these up, and then we can start filling this in. This 2D array is basically an array of arrays. So our first array is going to be all the different answers for our first question. So we need a set of curly brackets that will function as the first array to hold all of the different answers for the first question. So I'm just going to start typing in some company names for our first question. So one of them was Sun Microsystems. And then separate each string with a comma. Starbucks. Let's see, Microsoft. And Alphabet. All right, so this is our first array. We need to create another array for the next question, and then we'll have a total of 3 for this example. So we need to separate each array with a comma. And honestly, I'm just going to copy this and change a few things. So this next array is for the second question, which year was Java created? And I'll start filling this in with a few answers. So 1989, 1996, 1972. So let me fix that. 1972 and 1492. And let's create the last array for the last question that we have. What was Java originally called? The answers I have listed were apple, latte, oak, and coughing. And then we do not need this comma for the end of the last array. All right, so we have our 2D array of strings that holds all the different answers, well, options for answers for all the different questions that we have. Now what we'll need is an array of characters, or you can do strings, to hold all the different correct answers. So this will be an array of characters, so char, then a set of straight brackets. Then we'll call this answers, and they will hold the correct answers. And this will be an array, so we need this within a set of curly brackets. I'm going to line this up. All right, and then if we're assigning char values, these are within single quotes. And I will list the first correct answer, so it's going to be option A. Sun Microsystems. We'll need to separate each with a comma. B is the second correct answer for the second question, 1996. And the last question is C for what was Java originally called, and it was originally called Oak. So just to verify everything, we have an array of questions, a 2D array of different options, and then an array of characters that will hold all of the answers. And another cool thing with this program is that it's dynamic. If we were to either take out answers or questions and added some in, it's going to function just the same. So actually, let's add another question here. Who is credited with creating Java? So make sure that if you're adding another question, you need to make sure that you have a comma. We'll need another array for our options. And let's start filling some of these in. Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, James Gosling, and the last one, Mark Zuckerberg. And we'll also need to add in one more answer, and the correct answer for the last question, who is credited with creating Java, that is James Gosling. If you've written your questions, options, and answers and have them picked out, we can continue on with the rest of this program. So we're going to be declaring and assigning a few things. So make sure that you write these within the quiz class, but before the constructor. The first thing that we'll declare is a guess, and let's make this a char data type. This will hold whatever our guess is going to be. Another char value to hold the answer. We'll need some sort of index, so this will be of the int data type. We'll need an int value to hold the correct number of guesses that we've had, and let's assign this a value right away of 0. We'll need a total number of questions, so I'll write total underscore questions, and we can actually set this to questions.length. And this will adjust depending on how many questions that we have within our array of strings named questions. So if we were to add another question, this questions.length would change from 4 and go to 5. So this adjusts dynamically. We'll need an integer to hold a result. We'll also be implementing a timer. So we'll want an integer to hold the current amount of seconds. And we can count down from a number such as 10, but if we want to adjust this, we can. Now for this next part, still within the quiz class, but before the constructor, we're going to be creating and initializing some GUI components. So the first thing that we'll need is a frame to actually hold everything. So I'm going to type jframe frame equals new jframe, parentheses, semicolon. We'll create a j text field. This will hold the current question that we're on. So j text field. You might have to watch the capitalization here. Text field equals new j text field, parentheses, semicolon. We'll need a text area to hold the current question. So j text area equals new j text area, parentheses, semicolon. We're going to create a few buttons. So j button, I'll call this first one button A equals new j button, parentheses, and then a semicolon. And I'm going to copy this and paste this a few times. I'll include perhaps 4 buttons. So A, button B, button C, and button D. And we'll create a few labels to hold all of the different answers. So J, label, and I'll call this answer underscore label A equals new J label, parentheses, semicolon. So this is the label for answer A. I'm going to copy this and paste it a few times. I'll change this to answer label B, answer label C, and answer label D. I'm going to create 2 labels for the timer. So J label, and I'll call this first one time label. All this will do is just display the word timer or something. So J label, parentheses, semicolon, and we'll create another label, and this will be called seconds underscore left. So this will function as a display for the countdown timer. So new J label, parentheses, and then a semicolon. All right, these are the last two. These will appear after we calculate the results. So it's going to be a J text field, number underscore right equals new J text field, parentheses, semicolon, and this is the last one. It's also a J text field, so J text field, and this is called percentage, and this will display what you got for a percentage on your score. New J text field, parentheses, semicolon. The last thing that we'll need to initialize before the constructor is the timer, but I think we're going to do that last. We want to be sure that everything else is working first. And with these variables and these GUI components, since we declared these outside of the constructor, but within the quiz class, they're more or less acting as global variables, so we can access these and make any changes to them anywhere within our program, which we will be doing within each of these individual methods. Okay, the next step is that within the constructor of the quiz class, we're going to start designing some of these GUI components that we have. So let's begin with the frame. So at the very top, we're going to type frame.set default close operation. And then within this, within the parentheses, we're going to type jframe.exit on close. All right, we need to set a size for this frame. So frame.set size, parentheses, and then a semicolon. And then feel free to adjust some of these values depending on how you want to design your own quiz. I'm just going to use a few that I liked. So 650 by 650 is a decent size for me. And at the very end of our constructor, we're going to type frame.set visible, and then put true within the parentheses. And I'll give us some room because we're going to be filling in a lot between these two lines. So let's test this out. All right, here is our frame. It is 650 by 650. We can change the background color. We'll type frame.get content pane, parentheses, and then dot set background, parentheses, and then within here, we'll type new color, and then a set of parentheses. Now, within the parentheses of this color, these are RGB values, so you can pick whatever color you want if you know how they work. If you pick 50, 50, 50, this is like a nice dark color. So let's try it. All right, yeah, and the background of our frame is now this darkish black gray color. Feel free to mess with these colors and change this to whatever you want. This is just what I prefer, this Darkula looking color theme. It's because I feel like I'm a pretend elite hacker. Now, I do not want to use a layout manager, so I'm just going to type frame.set layout, and then within parentheses, I'll just type null because I want to size everything and place them on the frame by hand. And this next part's optional. You can say frame.set resizable false if you do not want people to adjust the size of your frame. So let's run this and try it. All right, here's our frame. It's that color we wanted, and we cannot resize this window. Okay, well, we have our frame. Let's create our text field that's going to hold the number question we're currently on. So we'll type text field, and we're going to set the bounds first. So set bounds will determine where this text field is going to be placed, as well as the height and the width of our text field. So if I want this in the top left corner, we're going to put the x coordinate as 0, y coordinate as 0. I want this to be 650 pixels long, and for the height, perhaps 50 pixels. Let's set the background color, so text field. Actually, I think I'm just going to copy this to save a little bit of time. Text field dot set background. Okay, then within here, new color, another set of parentheses, and this is again another RGB value. If I want like a blackish color, I'll just type 25, 25, 25, but feel free to place whatever color you want here. Next is the foreground color, and that is set foreground. And it's going to be the same process as what we did with the background. So new color. And I think for the RGB value, I'm going to pick like a green color. So perhaps 25, 255, and 0. So that's going to look green. Let's change the font. So text field dot set font parentheses semicolon at the end. And within the parentheses, we're going to type new font parentheses, and there's 3 parameters that we can fill out. The first is the font type, and I like the font ink free. It's like it's handwritten. Okay, in the next field, we can type some sort of style, like if we want just plain text, we can type, let's see, it's font dot plain. Otherwise, you can change this to italic or bold, but I think I'll keep bold. And then the third is the font size, and I think I will pick 30. Next line, let's set the border. So text field dot set border parentheses semicolon. Within the parentheses, we're going to type border factory dot. Then there's a bunch of different borders that you can pick from. This is one that I like. It is create bevel border. And within parentheses, I'm just going to type 1. Next line, we can set the horizontal alignment. So let's center the text on our text field. So text field dot set horizontal alignment. I'm just going to click on this because I don't want to type the whole thing because I'm lazy. And then within parentheses, J text field dot center. You can also have this centered someplace else as well. Make sure to get the capitalization right. So the J, T, and F are capital. Okay, then we do not want people to edit this. So we're going to type text field dot set editable within parentheses false. And let's add our text field to our frame just to try things out. So frame dot add within parentheses text field. Okay, let's see what this looks like so far. Okay, here's our text field. It's this black bar at the top of our window. And let's add some sample text. So text field dot set text parentheses semicolon. Within the parentheses, we're going to type just some testing text or something. We're going to get rid of this right after, so I just want to be sure that this works. Yeah, looks good enough to me. Everything's working fine. Let's delete this and move on to the next section. All right, well, since I'm so lazy, I'm actually just going to copy this and we're going to paste it and then change a few things. So this was our text area. So this is going to hold the actual question, well, at least display it. So let's change text field to text area and just make a few other minor changes. So we have the bounds, but we're going to want to change these. So let's move this down perhaps 50 pixels. So this is going to be displayed right under the text field. 650 is a good width. Same with the height. All right, now we need to set line wrap. So text area dot set line wrap. So in case the text goes off the screen or off the text area, it's going to wrap around to the next line. We're going to set this to true. We're also going to set wrap style word and set this to true. I'm going to change the font size slightly. Let's bring it down to perhaps 25. And we cannot actually align text areas, so I'm going to get rid of this line. Then let's add our text area to our frame. So frame.add text area. And let's see what we have so far. Okay, here's our text area. It's this second black bar. Let's add some sample text. So text area dot set text. And let's add some sample text, and we're just going to delete this right away. All right, we know that this is working. This is going to display our question. I'm going to get rid of the sample text. And actually, I think I'm going to change the font type. Another font that I like is MV Bully. It's a little bit easier to read than Ink-Free, but I like Ink-Free just because it looks handwritten. And I am going to keep this at 25. Okay, it looks like everything's good for the text area. Let's move on to the buttons. So let's create the first button, and that was called Button A. And we'll set the bounds, set bounds. The first field is the starting position. That's the X coordinate, so let's set this to 0. The second position is the Y coordinate, so let's start this where Y equals 100. Let's make the button 100 by 100 pixels. All right, then let's set the font. So button A dot set font, new font, parentheses, and then we can pick a font within here. I think I'm going to keep this MV Bully. I'm actually going to copy this to save a little bit of time. All right, so MV Bully, font bold, and I will make this 35 because this is only going to contain one letter. All right, let's say button A dot set focusable false. Sometimes when you click a button, it's highlighted. This will prevent that. Then we need to add a action listener to this button. So button A dot add action listener. And we're going to type this, the word this, within parentheses. All right, let's copy this and just make a few changes. So this is button B now. Okay, and we will want to change the bounds so it's in a slightly different location. So let's move this down 100 pixels. All right, let's copy this and make button C. So this is all button C now, and we'll move this down 100 pixels. And lastly, button D. And let's move this down to where Y is 400. And then we need to add all these buttons to our frame. So frame.add button A. I'll copy this and do the same thing for B, C, and D. So frame.add button A, button B, button C, and button D. Let's run this and see if it actually appears. Okay, here are our buttons. We just need to set the text. Going back to button A, we're going to type button A dot set text. And this will appear on our button, whatever we type within double quotes. We're just going to type A for button A. Let's copy this, do the same thing for button B, but we're going to put the letter B. Then button C, and we'll put the letter C. And lastly, D. So button D dot set text D. Let's see if it actually displays now. Yep, here are our labeled buttons, A, B, C, and D. After the buttons, we need to add our answer labels. So answer underscore label A dot set bounds. So we'll place this at 125, where Y is 100. We'll make this 500 pixels long, and for the height, 100 pixels. So I'm going to copy this portion. Answer label A dot set background. Then within parentheses, new color. I'm actually going to pick a color that matches the frame background. So that was 50, 50, 50. Answer label A dot set foreground. New color within parentheses. And I'm going to use that green color that we had before. So that was, let's see, it was 25, 255, and 0. Okay, one more thing. Let's set the font. Set font, parentheses, semicolon, then within parentheses, new font. Then within the inner set of parentheses, same process as before. We can pick a font. So I'll pick MV Bully again. And I will say font dot plain. And I will make this for a font size 35. Okay, I'm going to copy this and do the same thing for the other labels. We just need to change a few things. So answer label B. And I am going to move the y coordinates down by 100. So this is 200. And let's make answer label C. And we'll move this down to 300. Answer label D. This will be 400. All right, then let's add these labels to our frame. So frame.add answer underscore label A. Then I'm going to copy this and paste this. Then we'll change it to B, C, and D. Now let's add some sample text just to see if everything's working. So answer label A, let me copy this, dot set text, and I will type testing label 1, and I'll do the same thing for the others. Answer label B dot set text, answer label C dot set text. I should probably change these numbers. No big deal, we're going to get rid of these. Okay, let's see if this actually displays now. I'd be really disappointed if it didn't. That was a lot of work. Okay, yeah, here is where our options for answers are going to be displayed. So let's get rid of these, just because we want like a fresh start once we boot up this program. All right, so that is our answer labels. Let's create the timer for the seconds left. This will be the countdown timer. So seconds left dot, I'm just going to copy this real quick, and let's set bounds, parentheses, semicolon, and I will place this. This is going to seem somewhat odd. I actually measured this out. So where X is 535, where Y is 510, and it's going to be a box. So it's going to be 100 by 100. Okay, seconds left dot set background new color, and I'm going to pick that dark black color that was 25, 25, 25. Then foreground set for, oh, I did spell it right. Okay, new color. I think I'm going to have this be red. So if you want a red color for the RGB value, just type in 255, 0, 0. Okay, then let's set the font. Seconds left dot set font. Then within the parentheses, new font. I type too fast sometimes. All right, and then within the new font, we're going to type ink free or whatever font you want to use. Then if we want this to be bold or italic, we can change that. So I'll have this be bold, like it's a big red ugly number that counts down how many seconds you have. And this is going to be like a really large font. It's going to be 60. It's a big countdown timer. Okay, seconds left dot set border parentheses semicolon. Within the parentheses, we're going to type border factory dot create bevel border, or whatever kind of border you want. Then I'll just put one within here. Seconds left dot set opaque, and I'll set this to true. Seconds left dot set horizontal alignment J text field dot center. All right, am I missing anything? Oh, we should probably set the text. Set text. All right, so this is what we're going to do. We can't just put seconds. Seconds was an integer variable, so we actually need to convert this to a string so we can display it as text. So what we're going to do is type in string with a capital S dot value of, and we need to put, oops, all right, we need to put our seconds within parentheses. So this will take whatever the seconds currently is and convert it to a string and display it on the screen. We'll need to add this to our frame, so frame.add seconds left. Okay, let's see what this looks like so far. Yep, this is going to be our countdown timer. And it's already displaying 10 because at the top of our program, we set seconds to 10, but that's going to change when we use our timer. All right, moving on. Let's display the time label. So this isn't exactly necessary. I just want to put the word timer above our seconds timer. So this part's optional, but I'll type in time underscore label dot set bounds. And I actually measured this already. It was 535, 475, 100, 25. Okay, I'm just going to copy this. Okay, next was the background. I am going to copy this and change these values to 50 so it matches the frame color. Then we have the foreground, so time label dot set for ground new color. Let's see, I think I'll pick red. So 255, 0, and 0. Okay, time label dot set font new font. I will pick MV Bully again. This will be font dot plain, and let's pick 20 for a size. Okay, then let's set horizontal alignment, and that was J, text field dot center. Okay, then let's set some text. Set text. And I will place the word timer within here. And perhaps like an evil smirky face. It's a countdown timer. Okay, then we need to add this to our frame. Frame.add time underscore label. But make sure you put it within parentheses. Label. Okay, let's see what this looks like. Yep, here's our timer label, but I'm going to change the font slightly to perhaps 16. Totally not necessary, but I just think it's a funny message. Okay, we only have a few more things to add. This is going to be for the results. We're going to display the number of questions that we got right out of the total amount. So that was number right. And I'm going to copy this. We're going to set bounds. And this won't be visible right away. This is only going to be visible at the end. So I'm going to pick 225 for the x coordinate, where this is going to begin. And where the y coordinate is 225, I'll make it 200 pixels wide and the height 100 pixels. Okay, number right dot set background. I promise you're probably going to be an expert at setting background colors and fonts after this because we do it so often. All right, new color, and this will be a dark color, so 25, 25, 25. Number right dot set foreground new color parentheses. And let's see, we want a green color, so that was 25, 255, and 0. Let's set the font, number right dot set font, new font, and you know the drill now. I will pick, let's see, ink free this time. to have that handwritten style. Font dot, how about bold? And for the size, 50. We're displaying the results, so we want like a big font. Okay, then let's set border, parentheses, then we're going to type border factory dot create, then I will pick bevel border type 1. And let's set the horizontal alignment, set horizontal alignment, and I will type J text field dot center. Okay, this last part is important. Number right dot set editable false, because we don't want people to edit what the number right you got was. It's kind of like you're cheating on your test or something by changing the numbers. It's kind of funny though. All right, then let's display the label that's going to display the percentage we got right. And this is the last one. So percentage, I'm going to copy this real quick. Percentage dot set bounds. I will place this where X is 225, 325. It's going to be 200 pixels long and 100 pixels tall. Percentage dot set background. I'm actually going to copy this. So set background, new color, 25, 25, 25. Let's see, then foreground. I'll copy the same thing. So we'll change this to percentage dot set foreground, new color, and that should be green then, 25, 255, and 0. For the font, I will pick the same thing as what we had here for number right, but I'm going to change this to percentage. Same thing with border. Honestly, I could have just copied this whole thing basically. So percentage dot set border, border factory, create bevel border. Then set horizontal alignment. Percentage dot set horizontal alignment, J text field center. And the last one, set editable false. So percentage dot set editable false. All right, that should be all of them. Good work. All right, with this number right and this percentage, we are not going to add this to our frame quite yet, but let's just test this just to be sure that they're working. So frame.add number underscore right and frame.add percentage. Okay, let's just see if they display. Okay, so when we calculate the results, it's going to display this box in the middle. The top is going to be the number of questions we got right out of the total amount, and the bottom box is going to be our score percentage that's going to be calculated. But let's get rid of these for now. We're not going to display these and add these to the frame until the end. Now, there's just one last thing we're going to do for this constructor. After our main method instantiates a copy of our quiz, it's going to initialize and declare everything. And at the very end of the constructor for the quiz, what we're going to do is we're going to call the next question method to actually begin our quiz. So we're going to type next question, parentheses, semicolon, and the next phase of this project is to actually begin this quiz. All right, we are now within the next question method. The first thing that we're going to type in here is that we're going to check if our index, and this is going to act as a counter to determine which question we're on, is greater than or equal to total underscore questions, then we need a set of curly braces. And if the index is greater than or equal to total questions, what we're going to do is call the results method, and we'll actually code this part later on. Okay, so else what we'll do is that we're actually going to populate the screen with the question number, the question, and the answers. So the first thing we'll type in is text field dot set, not that, set text. And within the parentheses, we're going to type something like question, okay, then plus our index which is currently set to 0 plus 1. So it's going to change the text field to question 1, and then the next time we call next question, this index is going to increase, and it's going to be question number 2 then. Now we need to set the text for our text area, and this will actually display the question being asked. So text area.set text, parentheses, and a semicolon at the end. And within here, what we're going to display is our array of questions, but it's going to be at a certain index. So questions, then your straight brackets, and then put the index within here. So this is going to begin at 0, since arrays always start at 0. When we increase our index, it's going to retrieve the next question whenever we increase our index and recall this next question method. And we need to display and set the text for our answer labels. Answer label A dot set text. And what we're going to type in here is that we're going to use our 2D array called options. And there's 2 sets of straight brackets. Within the first set of straight brackets here, we're going to type index. So this is going to start at, think of it like row 0. And here, we're going to retrieve whatever is within the first array, the first element of the first array. So let's copy this and paste it a few times, 1 for each label. So that's B, C, and D. Let's just change these. So answer label B dot set text at our index, and then we're going to change this 0 to 1. So we're going to change answer label, the third one, to C, and this index to 2, and answer label D, and we're going to change this 0 to 3. That's everything for this next question method for now. Let's test this out and see what we have. Okay, yeah, everything is populated for our first question. Now let's move on to the action performed method. This action performed method is going to trigger when somebody clicks a button. So the first thing that we'll want to do is that if somebody clicks a button, they're submitting an answer. So the first thing that we'll want to do is actually disable all the buttons, just temporarily at least. So we're going to say button A.set enabled, and we're going to put false within here. And let's copy this and do this for the other few buttons. So button B, button C, and button D. The next thing that we'll want to do is to determine which button is being pressed and check to see if that's a matching answer to what we have within our array called answers. So the first thing that we'll do is if e.get source, parentheses, is equal to button A. So if somebody clicks button A, what are we going to do? We will assign our answer a character value. So our answer equals A then, and we're going to check if our answer is equal to that array of answers, but at a particular index. Okay, so if our answer equals the one that's stored in our array of answers at a certain index, depending on which question we're on, we're going to increase our correct guesses by 1, but you can just put correct guesses plus plus. All right, let's do the same thing for each of these buttons. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it. We're going to change a few things. We're going to change button A to button B, answer B, and that's all we need to change then. So let's do the same thing for button C, answer C, and lastly, button D, and answer D. I'm anticipating some people might have this problem. For our answer, this is declared as a char value, so it holds a single character. So make sure that this is within single quotes, but if you decided you want your answer to be a string, then make sure it's within double quotes. And for now, all we need to do within the action performed method is that we're going to call the display answer method. And we can move on to this next section. The first thing that we're going to want to do with display answer, since this is going to be executed regardless if somebody actually submits an answer or clicks a button, we probably want to disable all the buttons again just in case. So I'm going to copy these methods where we disable all the buttons and just place it first within the display answer method. So with any answer label that is incorrect, we're actually going to change the font to red. So this is how you can do that. We'll use an if statement, and we'll put within here answers at whatever index we're currently on, our current question basically, does not equal, let's begin with A. That's the character A. So if the answer is not A, what are we going to do? Answer underscore label A, and we're going to change the font color. So set for ground new color, and perhaps we'll change this to red. So that is 255, 0, and 0. Okay, let's copy this and make a few changes. So answers index, well, the answers at this index does not equal B, then we're going to change answer label B. Same thing for C, answer label C. And lastly, D. Answer label D. Let's see what we have so far. So this is the first question. So which company created Java? The correct answer is Sun Microsystems, but I'm going to guess the wrong answer, and let's submit the answer of Starbucks. All right, any wrong answer is now in red. So what we'll want to do before we go on to the next question is revert these colors back to what they were originally, and then move on to the next question. But the difficult part about this is that we'll want to add maybe a second or two delay. After flipping the colors to red, we'll want to flip it back to green after a second or two. So we'll need to create a timer in order to do this. So this is going to be the most difficult part of this video, but if you can get through this, then you're on the home stretch to completing this. We're going to create a timer within the display answer class. So we're going to type in timer with a capital T, and let's name this timer pause. All it's going to be doing is adding a pause after we display the answer, the correct answer that is. So timer, we'll call it pause, equals new timer. This part is going to be really tricky, all right? But hang in there. So after this left parenthesis, this is what we're going to type. We're going to type 2000 if we want like a 2000 millisecond pause. That's the same as 2 seconds. If you want a shorter pause, you can change this to a lesser number. But let's stick with 2 seconds. All right, then comma, and then type in new action listener. Then add a set of parentheses. Now we're going to add a set of curly brackets, and we're going to be putting a few things in here. The first is that we're going to override a method. So let's type in override, and what we're going to be overriding is the action performed method. So public void action performed, then within parentheses, action event E, then a set of curly brackets. So this is what you should have so far, but let me bring these together so it's easier to see. So when our timer reaches 2000 milliseconds, 2 seconds, we're going to perform whatever is within this action performed method, and we'll actually flip the colors back to green and then move on to the next question after that pause. So the first thing that we'll want to do is that we're going to take these answer labels and change these back to green. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it within here, and let's change this to what we had originally. I think that was 25 and then 255. So that's like a green color again. All right, so let's copy this and do the same thing for the other labels. Let's see, B, C, and D. So you might have like a red line under one of these curly brackets. We just need to finish closing this whole timer instantiation. So at the end of this curly bracket here, we're going to add a right parenthesis and then a semicolon, and that error should go away. Now we have a few other things that we need to fill in with the action performed method. So the first thing, well, the next thing, is that we'll want to reset our answer, and we'll just set this as like nothing basically. Just like a blank space, that works just fine. And then seconds, we're going to set this back to 10 because it's going to be counting down. It's going to be a lesser number after the countdown. Seconds left, that's that display for the seconds. Set text, then that was seconds. But since this is an integer variable, we need to convert this to a string. So string dot value of, and then we need to surround this with a set of parentheses. There we go. We need to re-enable our buttons. So button A dot set enabled true. And we'll do the same thing for the other buttons. So A, B, C, and D. We're going to increase the index by 1, so then we can go to the next question. And then we're going to call the next question method. All right, so this is what you should have so far for this timer. Feel free to pause the video if you're missing anything. Last thing that we'll need to add to this display answer method, so make sure that you put it in the right spot, is that we'll want to start this timer. So the timer was named pause, and we'll use the start method. Okay. One problem though, this timer, the action performed method within the timer, is going to execute every 2 seconds. So we only want it to repeat once, or activate once basically. There's actually a method that can help us with that. It's the set repeats method, and we're going to set this to false. So this will only execute once then, whatever is within our action performed method. All right, so that's everything for the display answer method. Okay, let's test to see what we have so far. Okay, one thing I've noticed is that we still need to work on the timer for the countdown, but let's check to see if everything else is working. So which company created Java? That is Sun Microsystems, and you can see that it's momentarily paused before it moves to the next question. So which year was Java created? That is 1996. What was Java originally called? And that was called Oak. Who is credited with creating Java? I'm going to guess Mark Zuckerberg, and that is wrong. It is James Gosling. Next on our agenda is that we'll want to calculate and display the results of the quiz, and then lastly, we'll work on this timer at the very end. So let's move on to the results then. Now, within the results, the first thing that we'll want to do is to disable all buttons so people will not continue to press the right answer for the button after the quiz is finished. So we'll say button A dot set enabled false. And we'll copy this and do the same thing for the other buttons. So B, C, and D. Button B, button C, and button D. Now we'll want to calculate the result if we want to display some sort of percentage. I actually used an int value to truncate the decimal portion, but you can always change this to a double value or a float value if you want that decimal in. So what we'll do is that we'll take the correct underscore guesses, divide this by total underscore questions. With this equation, we're actually performing integer division, so we're going to lose that decimal portion normally. So what we'll want to do is actually cast one of these as a double value, so then we can retain the decimal portion. All right, so let's surround these with parentheses, and then we're going to multiply this result by 100. And then lastly, what we can do, if you do not want the decimal portion in your answer, let's say you get 2 out of 3 questions right, and you don't want the 66.66%, you could just cast this as an integer at the very end. Let's add a semicolon, but edit this however you want. All right, so then we have a result percentage. Next, what we'll want to do is change our text field, and we're going to set the text to display something like results, because we really don't need that place for answers anymore or questions. So results. And we're going to clear out pretty much everything else. So text area dot set text parentheses, and then you can just put in nothing basically just to set a double quotes, and that's all. All right. answer underscore label a dot set text. Basically the same thing, just an empty set of double quotes. Let's do the same thing for all answers. So B, C, and D. We're going to display the correct guesses that we got right out of the total questions. So we're going to take the number right. I think this was a text area if I remember, or a text field, one of them. Set text. Then within parentheses, we're going to type maybe correct underscore guesses plus, then let's add like a slash here, a forward slash, plus total questions. I'm going to do a little bit of formatting. Like I want to add a left parenthesis before this and then finish it with a right parenthesis. But format this however you wish. All right, then we're going to display the percentage that we got right, the result. So percentage dot set text. We're going to display the result plus like a percent sign. Okay, then what we'll do at the very end is that we'll add all of this to our frame to display. So add percentage and add number underscore right. It really doesn't matter what order you put these in. You can switch these around if you want, doesn't matter. Okay, let's see what we have so far. Okay, I'm crossing my fingers that everything works here. Which company created Java? Sun Microsystems. Which year was Java created? 1996. What was Java originally called? It was originally called Oak. Who is credited with creating Java? I'm still convinced that it was Mark Zuckerberg, but that's wrong. And here is the result of our quiz. We got 3 questions out of 4 right, and our score was 75%. So we know that everything here is working. So the last thing that we need to do, well, it's optional if you want this. We can activate the timer, so that adds a little bit of danger to our quiz then. So when our timer reaches 0, after each question, it's going to skip it and go to the next question, and it's basically going to be marked wrong. So this is entirely optional. I'll show you how you can activate the timer then. So we're going to need to create another timer, but I really do not want to type all of this again, so I'm just going to copy all of this up to this point, and we're going to paste it, and then make a few changes. So I'm going to place this after all of these GUI component initializations. We'll put it right here. And we're going to get rid of everything within here. And we'll name this timer, perhaps timer instead of pause. Okay, then we have a few more things that we need to add within here. Don't worry, it's not that much. Now, we'll change this 2000 to 1000. We want this action performed method to execute every 1 second, every 1000 milliseconds. And after each second, we're going to take our seconds variable, which is normally set to 10, and decrement this by 1. So after each action performed method that executes every 1 second, we're going to subtract 1 from the variable seconds. And then we're going to take our seconds underscore left display, and we're going to set the text to display whatever the seconds currently is. But since this is normally an integer variable, we need to convert this to a string in order to display this. So we can't just put seconds, we need to put string dot value of, and then we can surround seconds within parentheses to convert this to a string. Okay, lastly, what do we want to do if our timer runs out when it hits 0? We can check to see if our seconds variable is less than or equal to 0. So if the timer runs out and hits 0, we're going to call the display answer method. So this will display the answer and disable all buttons, and basically we get that question wrong then. Ladies and gentlemen, we are almost at the end. So we need to start this timer. So where you can add this line of code is within the next question method, and add this at the end of your else block. So we're going to type timer.start then parentheses, semicolon. We're going to use the start method of our timer object that we have made. And we also want to stop this timer after we answer a question. So we can just put this within the display answer method then. So timer.stop, and we can just add this at the very top. All right, I'm crossing my fingers that everything works. Let's try it out then. Okay, looks like our timer is counting down just like we intended. So let's see what happens if we just don't do anything. 1, 0. All right, we got the question wrong then, and it displayed the right answer. So let's just finish the rest of this quiz then. Which year was Java created? 1492. What was Java originally called? Latte. Who is credited with creating Java? You know what? I'm still convinced it's Mark Zuckerberg. He's hiding something. Hooray! We got 0%. All right. With how this program is written, it's actually dynamic. So if we want to add any questions or take any questions away, we actually don't really need to change much. We only need to change our arrays of questions, options, and the correct answers. Like if I wanted to ask another question, the only real change that I need to make to this program is just to add another question, like, does pineapple belong on pizza? And then I would just need to add another set of options and then add another answer. But that's really it. That's all the changes you have to make if you want to update this quiz. You just have to update whatever is within these arrays. If you want the source code for this quiz, I'll post it in the comments down below and pin it to the top. So I put in a lot of work to create this video, so I have one last quiz for us to take, and it has one question. Can you help me out by subscribing? And the answer to this is, yeah, sure, bro. Which is obviously the correct answer. But yeah, that is how you can make a simple quiz in Java. Hey you, if you enjoyed this lesson, then you can help me help you in 3 easy steps by smashing that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe if you'd like to become a fellow bro.